Are you on the stream?
I am on the stream as well. I'm just, am I actually on the stream? I am on stream, yes. So I actually, I, hold on.
No, I will say I'm checking. It's a little delayed. I'm checking on YouTube. I don't think your sound is anywhere near my sound.
Sorry, my voice mic was turned off for the YouTube. Sorry, for the stream. I should be clearer now.
Okay, now I can hear it. Can you play something on the piano?
Well, it's gonna sound awful for you. No,
Okay. Yep.
I mean you can.
I think everything sounds to be working.
Yeah, if you're hearing from Discord, it's gonna sound awful because only the voice mic using the bad audio card is being captured. But
Yeah.
from the stream, it should be the microphones.
Yep. I think I can hear your voice and the piano clearly on the stream. I was just testing it quickly.
Okay, sounds good. That would be great.
Okay.
Okay, so I'm gonna. So what am I gonna do? I'm gonna turn my. I'm gonna turn all my stuff off, and feel free. So okay, so let's actually properly introduce this. So today we are looking at the first nocturne of Opus 37 by Chopin. So we are finally sort of picking up on the sort of on the study of Chopin nocturnes. We were through Opus 15 and 27, and in fact also 32, and now we're moving on to Opus 37. So what you see on the screen right now is the first two pages of the Nocturne, which is probably the only part that we will try to make through today. But let's. And today we also have a featured guest who goes by the the stranger pianist from the street. Um, so and this pianist will play for us Opus 37, number 1.
Little Easter egg to start.
I guess this is really well done in the sense that we will definitely not talk about the middle section. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. This is a firm record of the composing power of the stranger pianist from the street. Well, thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. This is quite extended because I was caught off guard when the first section was truncated. And I thought I lost track of time or I lost track of concentration, and then I just realized, okay. But then I thought that okay, maybe it's the stranger pianist who is not able to sort of pull through, as in he forgot to do a page turn. Yeah, and then so all of this is well hidden.
Just enough of a what's going on to make you pay attention.
Yes, indeed. Well, thank you very much. Somehow the stranger pianist knows my birthday, so thank you. So thank you very much. Okay, but that already has merits to a couple of things that is out here. Now, again, we're gonna still probably leave this open to the strange pianist, in the sense that is this enough ground for us to talk about the work? I think probably there is. I guess this is invitation to say whether the strange pianist would like to play the full piece in its actual form, or we can just take it from here, because I mean the majority of the first part is actually played, right? It's actually played in its almost in full, right?
The majority of it is played. Let me play it properly. That way, there's context. I also think that perhaps there's some interesting things to talk about from the transcription.
Yes.
Once you know what it's supposed to sound like.
Yes. This is This is for personal reasons. This is extremely appreciated, and then yes. Well, again, how about this? Let's hear from the stranger pianist again, but on the actual composition by Chopin, and we will come back to discuss the implications and possibly the connections to the transcription. Now, the transcription score is unfortunately not available on screen, but we will probably appreciate it when it is presented. Okay, so I'm gonna mute myself again, and let's hear this. Let's carry this.
All right, here's the real version. Sorry, I had a dog intrusion. Give me 1 second. Okay. All right. Now here it is.
just unfortunate that we don't have a live audience to appreciate the spontaneity in this work and delivered by the stranger pianist from the street. It's a shame that this cannot be heard live, and only I get to enjoy this myself here. Now, let's thank the stranger pianist from the street, and let's look at how, just let's develop a feel for this. Does this sound similar to any of the Chopin Nocturnes that we have discussed so far? In another word, has Chopin evolved? Has his nocturne or nocturnes evolved? Yeah. What about this? This is Opus 37. What I have on the screen is one version of this work, one copy of this work, and I'm just checking the year of composition. It's 1838. So Chopin will be 28 years of age at this point. Let's hear it from the player himself.
Did you say 1838? This is the same year as the Kindersehnen, right?
This is the same year as the Kindersehnen, yes, indeed. Well,
what a delight. That seems like that's the year of quiet introspection.
Well, Schumann is still young, I think, so I don't know whether he is, I don't know whether he is actually fully, let's say, has matured, but somehow he is able to introspect. But I guess you have just given a maybe your feel of this work. That is introspection. Which nocturne from earlier opuses that could be also introspective, or maybe this is the first one. So maybe it makes sense for us to go back a little bit, right? It makes sense for us to go back a little bit. So let me just check my sound here. Okay, so it should work now. So the reason why I'm doing this is that I want to sweep through all Chopin Nocturnes before this. So that was Opus 9, number 1. I think it's a very pretty, but is it really deep work? I don't usually treat it as a very deep work. It's almost like a mini, early, immature version of Opus 27, number 2, but in a minor key.
Yeah, I view Opus 9, number 1 like the song or the tune that you get in a music box.
Yeah.
There can, it's sort of, there's something singable about it, memorable about it. It can be a little bit, it can be something that's ponderous or reflective, or maybe even a little poignant. It associated with a memory, but in and of itself, it's not particularly deep.
It does also have some kind of an environmental structure, in the sense that I think there is some rocking potential here, right? So this is almost has the 27-1 feel, and then you might get some boat theme into this. It also gets, unfortunately, unfortunately repetitive, but that's the nature of what's the word, composite binary form. There are only two things being spoken about here, and they get repeated, and then they eventually come back to this, right? Now, sorry, this is actually binary form or ternary. Well, I guess we should go back to Opus 9 when we talk about it. But that's Opus 9 number 1, and the reason why we started with this is that I want to check if there's any nocturne before this that is introspective. So, of course, Opus 9 number 2, it sounds a little too what's the word, aristocratic.
It's about as long as you can get.
Sure. Okay. So I think I'm not even going to play it. I'm just going to say it. Okay. Number 3 is a very unique one in my opinion, because it's the first ternary form, and it sounds actually a little weird almost. I'm actually going to use the word weird. And I think weird is fully captured by the weird, let's say, the chromatism here. It's a lot of unease. So Chopin is, even though he says the work is in B major, he just adding a lot of accidentals, naturalizing a lot of those sharps. So it's almost a nocturne that starts with loads of questions or loads of unease, but it's actually, but at the same time, it's a little jumpy one because it's in 6. It felt like a confused kid, or if you will. And loads of Chopinesque ornamentations. So introspective, maybe not. It is describing a state, I think, that is not the same as introspection, and not to mention the middle part is very stormy, agitato, so it's not introspection yet. And then you go into where? Okay, the usual one that I play. So we made some location or weather relationship to this. This is not introspective. It's pretty. It's pretty on the outside, on the outer shell, and it's again stormy in the middle shell. So it's a typical ternary form. Opus 15 number 2. Sounds like a remembrance more so to me. Okay, I can't play today. Okay, and in the middle. Okay, yeah. You could say that this is, this could be introspection, but I think it's too busy for an introspection. It's still, I mean, it is sotto voce in the middle. It's meant to be a little quieter. I think it's still too notey for me to be truly an introspection. And then we get to Opus 15 number 3. We are just getting to the point that we happen to hit the same key. Opus 15 number 3 is G minor as well. I don't know. Still not there, because the melodic line is developing upwards. Maybe there is a section that sounds introspective, which is... Okay, alright. So anyways, I am kind of out of this
I
today.
agree. I think it still strikes me more as a mazurka than a nocturne.
Yeah.
And so we can reserve judgment on this one, but keep going.
Let's keep going. 27-1. Well, we did give it a boat ride, right? Maybe you're introspecting on a boat. To me, it is still too global, as in 27-1, the scale, because let's just think about this. It's where you're playing on the piano that is trying to describe the sound world, which then corresponds to the size of your actual physical world. And I think this is a big range. This is a big range. And the left hand is constantly playing. It's constantly playing. So there is something continuous going on, so which can be represented as waves in a lake or something. You go into the middle section. No, that's definitely not introspection. That's actually just repressed rage or something. I don't know. Typical of Chopin. 27-2. Still, something continuous is happening. There is an environmental factor that is very continuous. I probably will not say 27-2 is also introspective. Then we have 32-1.
I think this can only be described as introspection of an imbecile.
Of an imbecile? The imbecile really reveals himself at the end, right? Yeah. Well, it's too conversational in this work. I'm gonna put it this way because of the very thing. So I think it is too conversational for this to be an introspection, which is usually conversation with the person himself. Yeah, it's describing two things, which I don't like. No, sorry, to categorize as introspection. There's still something external. There's still communication. There's still exchanges. And I'm going to remove myself from number 10, opus 32, number 2. It just sounds too nice to me. Like 32 number 2 sounds too nice to me. So if we're reserving judgments on 15 number 3, then that probably is the only one that gets a little closer to somehow an introspection. And they somehow happen to line up with the same key. So if we were to really compare opus 15 number 3, and that there's still also a question mark whether this is apt or not.
Yeah, although to foreshadow maybe a little bit, I do think that we should recognize that keys themselves seem to have a character that's associated with them frequently, right?
I agree. Yeah.
It's not a determinative thing, of course, right? You can have any character in any key, but keys, when you just listen to, E flat major chord triad, right? You just listen to that and let it speak to you. It's telling you something different than, a D flat major chord.
Yeah.
So we'll put a pin in that for the moment, but I think
Yes.
it's good to note
It's good
as we think about whether there are relationships between nocturnes that are written in the same key.
And here is one good piece of unsolicited advice for all listeners, is that we should listen to multiple works and think about the cross relationships. And maybe the first thing that you do is let's just develop different feels explain your feeling, explain your impression towards different pieces, and then try to identify what is causing that difference or common ground. So somehow our sort of sweep of history of this nocturne, of Chopin Nocturnes, we landed with Opus 15 number 3 as a 20-30% or maybe 40% proxy of the work that you just heard. So, what's about it? Now we're back at, so this work is in G minor. Both works, Opus 15 number 3 and now 37-1, are in G minor. But what makes this now G minor piece even, I mean, what is indicative about maybe this work that it makes it introspective rather than the key itself? So, I mean, if 15 number 3 is a one to compare to, we can look at the figure in the, let's say we can look at the out. So certainly 15 number 3 is in 3/4. This current work is tempo marking lento in 4. So technically we could start both works ambiguously on the first note. We don't know which one that we're playing. As opposed to maybe the way to think about this is that I feel 15 number 3 is still has space between between the bars because of the natural pauses of the rhythm. It is not describing any physical, let's say, movement. My only impression with the work of today's focus today is that there is some kind of a small periodicity in the left hand. Now, why am I talking about left hand when we don't even know what the melodic line is doing? Maybe my ears happen to align with the bass line more often than the melodic line. You know what, Nathan? Why don't you, let's hear maybe the first line again. Let's just hear, what is it, the first 8 bars, right? No, sorry, is it 8 bars? Is it 8, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7? Well, the 8th bar is actually developing into the next idea, so I guess we can hear up to measure 8. Now it's probably time for me to turn this around to see just the first page. Even just by looking at the geometry of this work here, what do you see? As if we don't read music at all. As if we don't read music at all. All we know is places where notes are placed, and they represent higher notes and lower notes. is there a clear downward trend from this first note, from this first phrase? Then you have a competition, yet you fall again, actually altogether, and you have yourself on repeat. Basically, this is not just this, but it's actually an entire downward trend here, and then you pick yourself back up, and then you develop your new ideas. So this melodic line is not within itself trying to do a up and down, which is very common in previous nocturnes. What can I highlight? What may be an example? So within the first phrase, you have up, you have down, up, and maybe you stay there, right? And then you have a down again. This first phrase here is almost unidirectional. We can say there's a little turn on the inside. That's fine, but it's up, down. It's mostly generally looking down, right? It's mostly looking down. And then you can categorize almost every single line following that with a clearly upward direction or a lower direction. This is often associated, actually, you can find much more of this feature in later Rachmaninoff's work, who goes extremely introspective. And his later work, especially after he came to the United States, he has developed this feature of just all the melodies are contracting downward. One example would be the slow movement of the Third Symphony. I wish I can have on this. Also, this is the fourth piano concerto. Every line is coming back, is coming down. So I'm trying to recall the Third Symphony, but it's something like that. It's always jumping down, or it's always coming down, and often associates with a solo instrument. So melodic lines that tend to contract, that tend to have a small range but going downwards, happens to tell stories that are that people are unable to open their mouth about. And these stories tend to be told by just themselves, when they're just talking to themselves. You will often introduce a way of trying to get away from this sort of sad introspection by having a line such as, and then you usually have a leap, which is a freedom personal moment. Chopin often employs this. But then you quickly develop into this downward trend again. If I don't play the grace notes, right? So that's always coming down. That's nearly always almost coming down. But then you have a. If we're seeing this current first two lines as like poems, they're like parallel lines. They're really parallel lines. They might even use the same sentence structure to parallelize. These are just my first impressions when I heard this work, and now when I'm looking at the score. This is melody. This is melody only. Now, I am more about feel than about what's on the score, as in, let's say, some technical stuff, some more subtleties. But again, if we're playing, then we need to feel, right? And if you're listening, the first impression that you get is how you feel about the sound, not about what's on the score. So now Nathan, as our stranger from the streets, recently picked up this work as not necessarily as just as a completion of the opus, but this certainly the stranger from the streets ended up sort of deciding to play this on stream and actually developed a full sort of a worldly understanding of this work. There must be some connection that you have made, personal connection with the work.
I think that's still a work in progress. This is new to me too.
Yes,
right?
yes.
I think it gives you a lot of space to think, right? And that's, I think, the beauty of sort of what we call introspective works. Maybe the only true nocturne, in some sense, because it is very sparse, right? It's not like you have multiple lines competing with each other.
Yeah.
You have a very obvious melody and accompaniment, right? You have some ornamentation, of course, but you don't have a conversation, so to speak. You just have a lot of time to think and pause and ponder. At least how I play it, right? I do know that many do not agree with the tempo that I chose, especially for the middle part, for the B section, which we'll come back to.
Yes.
But which seems to lack any indication of what the tempo should be.
Well, I mean, I heard certainly that in the transition bar, you obviously slowed down to basically, it's like a preparatory measure for the new tempo that you choose for the middle part, which I think is almost, I mean, that middle part will have some parallel with the middle parts of Opus 15 number 3. One could argue that they almost, even though, I mean, there's no indication here that this is meant to be religious, but it sounded certainly like a chorale, right? But we're going to come back to this. This is still the opening, but I mean, certainly today is kind of running I think I was sort of yapping for a little too long there. But so if this melody is already telling you something about introspection, then why do we even bother with the left hand? Like, the left hand must have also supported in some constructive way to not take over, right, as the main point of introspection. But isn't this periodicity fascinating? So you hear, I mean, this is like what is this, like Jaws, right? But I mean, it's not. But this sort of almost repetitive left-hand accompaniment, it is rotating between two notes, basically, now different harmony. It is like somehow like walking back and forth, because that's usually how I associate with these accompaniments. Now, lento is not necessarily about what? It's not andante, but andante is actually walking, right? It's not pacing front and back. So, I wonder.
I think there's enough variation in the left hand that you can view it almost as your body meandering around in space without being necessarily actively thinking about where you're going. Sometimes you get stuck, right? sometimes you're moving. Right? Sometimes, I don't know, are you going?
Yeah. This, I mean, we were in a cage here, and then we were freed for like half a bar. So your typical 2-5-1. This is already harking on the right-hand side, right? Right? And then you are off again. And then you're back here again, right? We're back on this back and forth again, and then you have a conclusive remark, which almost feels like a little chorale in itself, right? I'm missing the voice here. Not that he is actively predicting what's going to come up, but it does sound like a compromise. It does sound because. Go ahead. Yeah.
No, I do think that we have to view that as a chorale. It completely arrests the motion.
Yes.
Of what is going on.
That's the thing.
In the A section, right? So I think we have to regard this as something that sounds particularly solemn or religious in nature.
Even though we were earlier saying that we were caged in, let's say, the first two measures, right? But you're still moving. You're just you're not restless, but you're just it's meant to be unsettling. And then you're also moving again. And then you're moving again.
I think if this is a religious work, you are not currently in a state of mind where you have the most secure and comfortable relationship with religion.
You mean the work, or at the moment myself?
No, the work.
Okay, the work. Well, maybe myself as well, because I'm not of a particular faith, yes, physically I'm a little fidgety right now. So yeah. So you're absolutely right. The last measure here, so the one that is right over here, the left-hand pattern matches no previous movement. You're absolutely right. This halts everything. And then you get moving again, right? Then you get moving because things are being developed. This almost reminds me actually of let's say a compositional similarity as this. Oh crap. As in, this is a transitional development of the earlier material. They certainly have a lot of similarities in terms of, let's say, dotted eighth movements. They're in parallel in itself, right? I have a hard time. I think I have a hard time with this work. I mean, I can read it, but I still have a hard time with like I can feel the tension and the release in the different, let's say, positions of chords and stuff, and you will know how to control the volume of these things. But I think this work is more than that. It's not just, let's say, a micromanagement of where you feel the tension release to show pianistic sensitivity. if you have to categorize some, let's say, between Moravec and Arthur Rubinstein, then I'm probably more aligned with Rubinstein, who is more straightforward playing, rather than Moravec, who tends to take loads of liberties, sometimes even just completely ignoring the, let's say, the markings on a score. I mean, he sounds very good also. He sounds naturally pianistic, and then has a lot of nice things about it. But is it too personal for him? And then for Rubinstein, this is actually more of a, let's say, it's actually a Chopin work that's actually, there's something serious about it. I mean, this is a hot take, so feel free to, this is about Moravec, probably there's going to be loads of arguments against me here. I guess this is a question of what the performer wants to say here, relative to what Chopin is expressing. Like, why are there so? First of all, and I guess I mean we're kind of running short on time. I'm sorry that I have sort of overtaken too much things here, but why are there so many grace notes here? I think this is almost for the first time that I see, like, there's so much embellishment to, like, in every single bar there are some embellishment, almost.
Yes, and the embellishment is not even consistent throughout.
Yeah,
everything from, there are
Well,
certain pieces that are very repeated, right?
Yeah.
But they're always adorned slightly differently.
I mean, we can group these, right? Like, for example, or so these are like arpeggiated, right? Or you have term motifs, or so sure. I mean, you can group these, and they will later show up as well, right? The later, so these term motifs or the arpeggio, I guess you can categorize them, but they happen so often. It's not like any other work before this. Even for the work that you think that will have a lot of, let's say, room for ornamentation, they don't have it. They're just not this frequent.
Yes, and so especially given how little melodic material there is, right? Because otherwise, what is this?
Yeah.
Right. There isn't a whole lot. So you start to wonder: are we doing a disservice by calling these embellishment?
Yeah. Yeah. If we strip them away, do we still preserve the senses that they are? Yeah. Do they still? I mean, does the piece still give you the same feeling, right? So usually ornamentations sound flowery, let's say, I mean, it's usually a positive effect, right? It's usually a positively, it's usually a positive effect. These are not virtuosic, so these are not meant to be flashy or showman, right?
Right. At one end of the extreme, we have the Opus 9 No. 2 with the authentic variants, right? Some of those are purely virtuosic embellishments.
Yeah.
I think here you have to regard these as motivic.
Yes.
Or even melodic.
If we're able to categorize them into term motifs or arpeggiated motifs, then types, then they are kind of motivic now, right?
Mm-hmm.
Not to mention, for example, on the page right now, measure 37. Well, so I mean, this is common for the G minor stuff here, right? This is what Chopin often does. So basically, appoggiatura to the dominant that creates a local suspense. This is what Chopin does. So I guess the question remains: these ornaments are not truly ornaments; they are motivic. They serve. Now let's not try to get into the details of, let's say, the two different categories maybe represent two different kind of thoughts or something. But I guess we can almost establish that they are they are more important than before.
Yeah, I think that's right. I mean, look, I think there's one obvious way to think about it, which is one is horizontal and one is vertical, right? And one of them might even be our motivic link to the B section.
Yeah. I don't want to get into the B section, but I think that's a lead, right? That's always, I mean, I think there's always a lead. Okay, but it's unfortunately heading to the time where this is 8:12 and I have a presentation to prepare. And this is getting to the point of where the hell were we? Maybe we should end on this. We should end on this, exactly this. Okay, I have a point. I have a point now. We saw the undulating voice. Sorry, not the undulating. No, we see actually directional phrases rather than undulating phrases. They're nearly always contracting. That creates the that creates the introspective nature of the work. What I do want to highlight, and maybe as a segue to our next session on Sunday, and by the time that happens, hopefully we can finish the whole thing by discussing the middle section. I wanted to highlight the following, and just follow my pen here. This part. And also, maybe this is obstructing your view. Not just this part, but also, I want to highlight this. This is a pianistic technique. That 3 above the stat, above the tails, they are fingering instructions. So this falling motif seems to be obviously important here. Chopin says, play them accented in a section that's marked sostenuto. But you don't do it the first time. It's like a very gentle tell of this motif. But then the second time around, he asks you to use the same finger to play these notes. So Chopin, it cannot be saying that Chopin thinks that, okay, don't care about these notes. Please don't. Move on. Play them quickly. There's no chance that he is thinking that. This is begging you to give importance to this by telling you what to do exactly. So this motif must mean a lot in this work. And we will probably often find their realization, and that will be connected to our main point. A second main point is whether the ornamentations are important or not, and our sort of contention is that they are important, and hopefully these downward motions in the main melodic line is actually tied to some of the or I can say it's actually melodically assisted by the added grace notes.
Yeah, just to make sure that, you know, anybody can at least try to think about what this means, because I'm not sure we said it explicitly. Using the same finger for each of those notes mechanically just means that you cannot connect those notes in a legato fashion, right? When you use consecutive fingers like 3, 2, 1 here, just as an example, I can slightly hold the previous note as I play the subsequent note, so it sounds like it's connected to one another. When I have to physically, you know, I mean, there are ways to connect them even if you're using the same finger, but I think with these accents, that mechanically doesn't really work. So you're sort of having to lift, which creates a natural separation, right, between these notes. And obviously my piano cannot do this justice because my piano is not a real acoustic piano, so you can't really hear the differences. But there is a very significant difference in how this sounds when you are listening to this played on an acoustic piano, especially in a very reverberating hall.
In terms of speech, would you say that this is actually the act of enunciation?
I think the accents can get you there already. I wonder what the analogy is for using your middle finger repeatedly, just to phrase it that way.
Yeah.
I wonder if in Chopin's time that particular hand signal had the same meaning as we.
I mean, this is completely fine right here because this stream is not just made for kids. All in all, Chopin made it very clear here what he thinks is important that needs to be stressed. So he is not hinting. He is not hinting here, right? He is not hinting anything. He tells you to do this. I never realized this fingering until actually just now reading the score more carefully, and this appears again later on in a similar section that Chopin actually writes out the finger for you at this place. So
yes,
I guess this is a good time, I think, to pause because usually the first session is to get a feel of the opening line, because that's actually the most of the time that's where our impression is how we feel about this work at the beginning. We sometimes forget about the middle unless there's a large climax and we remember, but there's actually no large climax in this work in the middle. I mean, truthfully there is, but it's not a big sound, right?
it depends on who plays it.
Yeah, there you go. So somebody will make a big sound.
Yeah, we should remember to play the middle section. I can play the middle section faster and with more range in dynamics.
Yeah.
I think, because I do think a lot of people do it, and it is worth comparing, probably. So we can probably do that next time.
Yes. So I'm gonna call it short for today. Let's thank our pianist, stranger from the street. Maybe I should change that because from the street doesn't sound very. It doesn't sound very positive. But well, help me find a pianist that is on the street that is as good as the one that we have today, and I can assure you that you cannot, unless it's some kind of a Joshua Bell playing in the New York Metro and nobody recognizes him. So let's revisit this on Sunday, and by then we will probably have a very strong plan about these motivic ornamentations, these periodic left-hand movement that indicates motion, and then lastly, this halting chorale that was indicated in the introspective opening section, and how it ties to the middle section where the chorale actually takes place. Did the time freeze? Did everything freeze? I don't know. So, well, as you can tell that my camera stopped working. Phone is out of power, so I'm going to end it today. So thank you very much for checking in. If you have questions, if you have ideas of how to proceed with the topic, whether we're going too slowly, whether we're going too fast, whether Binan, whether myself is yapping too much, please say so. This is a free platform where all thoughts are appreciated. We are a bunch of amateurs who are trying to think about the great geniuses. So it may take us a little longer to think about things, but we want to get to the bottom of every piece, of how possibly these geniuses are exploring the sensitivity of our humanity, whether this makes sense or not. So, so to say, checking out, signing off.